Today we are talking about the 4 stages of business. 4 main stages to transition in your business if the goal is to build a business that runs without you. And if you're like me, that was my goal when I first started out. When I was just barely getting started, just had a push mower, I was putting it in the back seat of my Pontiac Grand Prix, hustling, turning my side hustle into a real business. The question is, how do you go from just getting started to now you're making some money, you've got some clients, to transitioning to a point where you are now starting to work on your business and not always in your business? That's what we're talking about today. There are 4 key stages and there are problems that occur in every single stage. I am going to share with you the biggest constraint or problem and how to get through each stage so that way you can continue to grow your business for you and your family and your team. Now, before we get into it, hit that like button. This is going to get super deep, but not too deep. We're going to get about a 30,000 foot view on this. Let's jump into it. Now, this is universal. No matter what business you're in, whether you're in a home service, landscaping, weed treatment, mowing, it doesn't really matter. Generally speaking, there is a certain number of employees that dictate what stage of business you're in. Now, before we dive deep into each stage, I'm going to share with you the number of employees that will dictate which stage you're at. So in the first stage, you typically have 1 to 4 employees at this stage, all right? In stage 2, you have, generally speaking, 5 to 9 employees or team members on your team. And then the next stage is going to be the 10 to 19. And the last stage is 20 to 50. Now, the reason we're only doing 4 stages is because honestly, guys, realistically, 85% of businesses go out of business in the first 5 years. And so I'm here to help you grow a more successful lawn and landscape business so that way you don't become a statistic and you actually learn the concepts of business and actually apply what you are learning here free in this YouTube channel. By the way, if you're not subscribed, you should definitely be subscribed. So literally pause, scroll down, click that subscribe button right now. All right, so we got 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 19, 20 to 50. So you're the only person that knows what stage you are in. Before we go any further, let's go down in the comments. I want you to tell me what stage of business you're in. Why? Because this helps me guide how I can teach you guys. Because if I have a lot of people at stage 2 that are struggling to get to stage 3, guess what content I'm gonna make? Stage 2. So tell me what stage you're in. I'll do it first. How about that? I am in stage number 3. This year we're going to peak at about 19 employees. So next year, my goal is to get from stage 3 over to stage 4. Now, what is the biggest constraint if you are in stage 1? You're just getting started, you're still learning the ropes. How do we get out of stage 1? Well, here's the reality of it. So I'll put the constraint in red. So we'll do constraint in red because that's a problem. So number 1 is you are not making enough money. You are not making enough money at this stage. Why? Well, because you're just figuring things out. And that's okay. We all start somewhere, right? Here's the reality of it, is when you're just getting started, you don't know what services to offer. Do you do sod? Do you do tree trimming? Do you do weed control? Do you do mowing? Who knows? But what I would tell you, if you are at this stage, do whatever it takes to make money. Doesn't matter. If you've never done sod before, guess what? I have a few sod videos. Go to my channel, search how to do sod. It'll show you. If you don't know how to trim a tree, so customer says, hey, do you do tree trimming? You better believe I do. I'll go get the chainsaw today. I only need a 50% deposit. Do anything you can to get started in the business so that way you can actually begin to make money. And here is how we graduate. So let's put this in green. We're going to graduate. You say, well, I am in stage 1, but how do I get to stage 2? I am starting to make some money in some services. I've got a few clients and this and that, but how do we get to that next stage? Well, the way to graduate is we need to offer more services. We just need to offer more services, make more money. We need to increase sales, i.e. upsells. If you're not on a CRM, please, we got to get on a CRM so that way we can start to collect the information from these leads that are coming down the pipe, phone number, email, name, address, and we can send them a text. hey, guess what? We just learned how to do tree trimming. So guess what we're gonna upsell next month? We're offering tree trimming services. So we need to increase sales. That is emails and texts. We gotta hit them both times. That is what will allow you to graduate to stage 2, which if you are in stage 2, let's talk about stage 2. So the biggest constraint here in stage 2 is now all of a sudden you said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna offer more services, I'm gonna increase sales, I'm gonna do emails and texts constantly, and guess what? You made a lot of money and you needed more people to do the work. So now all of a sudden you find yourself with 5, 6, 7 team members. Oh snap, we got 3 trucks rolling, I'm starting to become a leader now in managing people. All right, so this is what happens here. So the biggest constraint in this is you said yes, as in, sure, we'll take your money. Too much, way too much. Because the reality is you're not gonna be able to scale. I ran around like a chicken with my head cut off. We did everything under the sun for landscaping. I still remember this to a T. So stressed, spring rush, phones are ringing off the hook. I would be on the phone, 3 phone calls would come in. I'd be on a 10-minute phone call and I'd go, oh, here's another one, here's another one, and I'm so stressed out. I got team members calling me. It was crazy. And then you know what I'd do? I'd get to all the phone calls, I'd run over to the nursery, I'd pick up all the plants, and I'd bring them out to the crews, and I'd do a walkthrough with that. Like, my job was constantly running around like a chicken with my head cut off because we said yes too much. But that's okay, because we got to graduate into stage 2. Now, in order to graduate, the reality is we're servicing too many different kind of customers. So in this stage, we were doing commercial. In this stage, we were doing residential. Now we have to start to hone in. In order to graduate from, let's say, 3 trucks or so with 5 to 9 team members, in order to get to that next level of business where you are running 5, 6 trucks, you do have 12 to 15 people on payroll, and you actually are building a business where you get out of the actual doing the work, which if you're like me, that is the goal, to build a business that runs without you. I haven't mowed a lawn, honestly, in like a year and a half. Disclaimer, I mowed the property up here, okay? So I did mow a lawn, it was our lawn here, but like I don't go out in the field anymore because we've been able to transition and graduate these stages. So how do we graduate here? We have to get very, very dialed in on the type of customer that we service and the services that we offer. Have you ever heard the analogy, simplify to scale? That is what we're talking about here. In order to scale multiple teams, multiple crews, multiple trucks, multiple locations, whatever your goal is to get out of the field where you aren't the bottleneck doing everything, we have to simplify our services and avatar that we're selling to. Graduate, we need to focus on the 80-20, all right? Not the 80, we gotta focus on the 20. So what I would say is when you get to the end of the year, ideally you have a CRM here, okay? You're gonna get to the end of the year, you're going to sit down in the off season and look at your P&L, profit and loss statement. You're gonna look at where's the revenue coming from? Look at your CRM. Hey, what we noticed is we were doing everything. Aeration, sod, tree trimming, mowing, weed control, like everything. We noticed that there were 3 services that made up 80% of our revenue. And so what we did is we focused on that 20% of services. So we focused on the top 3, which was mowing, which was like 50% of our revenue. We focused on weed control, which was 30% of our revenue. And then we focused on flower bed cleanups, which was like 20% of our revenue. As you can see, that makes up almost 100% of our revenue. Sure, we did some sod, which was like 2%. Sure, we did some tree trimming, which was like 1%. Like, we did these other services, but in order to scale, we have to simplify. Because if you were having to train and teach a team member on 8 different services that we offer, that's going to be way too much. So in this category, we must simplify to scale, okay? Now, once we simplify, it will be the unlock for you to graduate and get to the next 2 trucks, the next team members, and get you to stage 3. All right, stage 3, this is where I'm at. So guess what? I am dealing with this same problem and constraint right now because I am trying to get to stage 4. Stage 3, what is the constraint? The customers have nothing else to buy. What do I mean by that? Well, guess what? We simplified our services. We only do mowing, weed control, and flower bed services. So when customers call and they say, hey, do you do tree trimming? Nope. Do you do sod? Nope. Do you plant plants? Nope. Do you plant bushes? Nope. Do you do the fabric liner in the flower beds? Nope. We have simplified our services so good that our teams know exactly what we do and they do it all day long, so they're the best at it, which maintains quality. But we have really good customers, they trust us a lot, and they say, here, Will, take my money. I want to give you more money because you guys do good work. You've simplified to scale. No matter what crew's on my property, they do it consistently because they do it all the time. It's all the services that we do. And I want to give you more money, but you have nothing else to sell me. And we've already built that rapport and that trust with the customer. And so how do we increase the LTV, which stands for lifetime value of a customer? Well, that is what we're dealing with right now. So here is the way to graduate. We must increase the LTV of each customer because here is the problem. At this stage, most people will be like, well, Will, why don't you go out and get more customers? And the answer is, well, we do. The reality is we're in a 5 to 7 mile radius. There's only so many customers we can acquire. Well, then it's like, okay, well, then why don't you go start another location? And it's like, well, guess what? We did. And we did start a second location. And we have plans this spring, next spring, to open up a third location and open up a fourth location. Like, we are already doing that. Like, sure, we can expand our territory and still offer those 3 same services, mowing, weed control, and flower bed services. But the reality is we have to figure out the unlock in this stage is we must increase the lifetime value of the client. Now, I sat down and I analyzed this for a very, very long time because this is my stage that I am in. And so I worked with all the top people in my organization to figure this out. I'm going to fire this off real quick because I'm not going to put it on the board because I could do a whole other video on this. Number 1, decrease yellow slips. If we increase quality and decrease poor quality, ideally the customer will stay with us longer. What will that do? Increase the lifetime value of the client. Instead of them only staying for 2 years, now they stay for 3 years because there's less churn. We're actually doing good work. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, we can increase the price of all the customers across the board. We say, you know what? We're going to raise prices by 20%. Guess what that does? Sure, you'll lose a few customers, but guess what? The lifetime value of that client goes up. So generally speaking, in 1 year, our customers give us roughly about $2,000 per year. That is the annual gross revenue of a client. Well, guess what? If we raise prices by 20%, that's an extra additional 20% on top of the $2,000. So that's another way that you can increase lifetime value. Okay, great. We could also add another service. But you said, hold on, Will. Why would you add another service when the goal is to scale? Well, you're right. And that's the reality of it. Because over here, we were offering everything under the sun in stage 1. And then in stage 2, we said, well, you need to cut out services and get rid of all the extra stuff and just focus on the 1 or 2 or 3 core services, right? And then now you're telling me to add more services? Yeah, absolutely, I am. And so what you want to do if you're looking at adding a service is add something that aligns with your business. In the winter, it might be Christmas lights. It could be pet waste removal. It could be something along the lines that doesn't require a lot of extra overhead, a lot of extra training, and all this other stuff, right? I probably wouldn't add fencing. That doesn't really align with adding a service with like mowing. You'd have to have a whole other trailer set up. You'd have to figure out how to put panels up with fencing and like, I don't even know, but like that's a whole other additional service. Now you got to train the office people, things like that. So be smart if you're going to add a service at this stage is all I'm saying. Next thing, okay, well, more and better. Focus on doing more and better. Maybe if you only offer bi-weekly mowing, maybe you say, you know what, we're going to offer a weekly mowing package. Okay, that's more and better. If you're doing weed control and you have 8 rounds, you say, you know what, let's add an iron round or a fungicide round. Let's make it 9 rounds instead of 8. Well, at 500 customers, if you add 1 extra round, that all of a sudden generates another $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for sending out 1 email saying, hey guys, we're now going to do a 9th round in your package. It's very, very easy to do that. And so what you look at is increasing the lifetime value of each customer will generate you more money and more profit to be able to spend money to recruit, to expand your multi-location franchise, to reach more customers, pay more money when all the other competitors are spending money on ads. You can spend double and triple because you figured out a way to increase the lifetime value of each client at stage 3 so that way you can expand and spend that money to advertise and get the best looking wraps and to build out multi-locations and to pour it into your website. And so that's how we get to stage 4. Let's talk about stage 4. So the biggest constraint here, you have now figured out a way to increase the lifetime value of a customer and add a service or 2. Typically at this stage, you're adding another service or 2, so that way you can increase the lifetime value of the client. And then all of a sudden, you now have 2 products, main products, that you're selling. Because what does this do? This takes your attention of the sole focus of maybe just mowing and landscaping to now you're adding an additional service. Maybe you've added a fertilization and weed control route in your business. And so now all of a sudden you're building a mowing business, but now you've added the fertilization and weed control service. You basically are running 2 businesses now underneath one roof, okay? That's the reality of it. And so the biggest constraint is how do you simultaneously push these things forward to build a business? And the reality is that is the biggest bottleneck here in constraint between 20 and 50 employees. Because you do have multiple big products, aka services that you're offering to customers that a lot of them pay for and want to buy into. So the way to graduate is to incrementally focus on each one of those products individually. Individually take the time necessary, put it up on a whiteboard. You've got product 1 and you've got product 2, or service 1 or service 2. And you ask yourself these questions. What are the top 3 things that I can do for that service right now, today, in the next week, that would move the needle forward significantly? Because the reality is at this stage, we must let small fires burn, because we can't do everything at this stage. We're running a 30, 40 employee business organization. We can't be and put out every fire at once. We can't mow every lawn. We can't take every customer service call. We can't open every single email. It's unrealistic. And so what happens is people get fluttered and disorganized at this stage, but they incrementally need to be laser focused on one of the services. You can even do 4 to 6 week sprints. So for 6 weeks, you're like, you know what? I'm going to focus on service A, and we're going to dial this in, and we're going to make it better. We're going to make it more profitable. We're going to become the best at it. However we figure out how to do that. Okay, when that's done, then we're going to go over to the next service, and we're going to give all our time and energy over here, and we're going to focus on the 3 thing that is going to move the needle forward for it. The other 17 issues doesn't matter. They're small fires. Let it burn. Let them burn. You don't have time to put out every fire in that category. And so that is the unlock that I have found for the different stages of business. If you are still watching, it is required that you hit that subscribe button, because it is the gentleman's agreement. I'm giving free content and free knowledge to you. So please hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.